The Ohio State Buckeyes took care of the Badgers of Wisconsin on Saturday afternoon. We look at why there may be fuel added to the fire in the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. We also dive into the Heisman voting to see where CJ Stroud fell. And we get the truth about Urban Meyer in Jacksonville from Tony Wiggins from Locked On Jaguars. All that and more in this episode of Locked On Buckeyes.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Monday, December 13th in the year 2021, and today's episode is brought to you by Sonos. Sonos is the official sponsor of ESPN College Football. Go to Sonos.com to learn more. I also want to thank every person out there for making Locked On Buckeyes their first listen of every single day. As I mentioned on Friday's show, I was at the Ohio State-Wisconsin game on Saturday, and prior to the game, I asked Adam Jardy from the Columbus Dispatch, who has been on the podcast. I ended up asking Jacob Binge from the Lantern as well, the assistant editor of the Lantern, just getting their initial thoughts about the game and what they thought might happen if they had a good feel on the game, who they thought would step up for Ohio State, because we all know it's EJ Liddell and somebody else has to step up for this Ohio State basketball team. Well, both of them, they were kind of like, neither one of them had a good feel on the game, and I was right there with him. I had no idea how this game would go. And early on in the game, there was an 8-0 run by Wisconsin. Media timeout came, and that seemed to be the flip that was switched for the Ohio State Buckeyes, and they never looked back. Buckeyes win. They win in a big way over the weekend, 73-55, a top 25 matchup, and Ohio State, when they're clicking, they are really, really good. So quick takeaways from the game. You want me to go all the way through the entirety of breaking down minute by minute. But EJ Liddell, with the way that he's playing right now, I know people have been saying future All-American, and I do believe it. If he stays at this clip, he is a future first-team All-American at the end of the season. But I've even seen people on Twitter, people that are in the know, that are insiders, that may even have a spot to vote for something like this or influence a position like this. They're saying EJ Liddell is the front runner for Player of the Year, not just in the Big Ten, in the entire country. I think the Big Ten race will probably come down to Jaden Ivey from Purdue, Trace Jackson Davis from Indiana, and then EJ Liddell from Ohio State. I believe it's going to be one of those three will be the Player of the Year for Ohio State. Once Ohio State gets into Big Ten play, EJ Liddell's going to have a big, tough task. Not only to do things on the offensive end, but he's going to have to defend elite players at his position every single night. And I do believe he's up to the task. But one of the best things about EJ Liddell is not only did he have 28 points on 11 of 16 shooting, he also added in 9 rebounds, 4 of them being offensive rebounds. But he had a plus-minus of plus 20. And that's one thing when you think about a guy who's going to be a stat sheet stuffer, who's going to be a force on both ends of the court. You're going to want to see, well, how productive is he? How much better is the team when he's on the court? Plus or minus wise. Not everybody looks at the plus minus, or does the team have more points when you're on the court, or do they lose points once you're on the court? That type of thing. EJ Liddell is huge. EJ Liddell is going to be a guy that he's very, very hard to stop on the offensive end, and defensively, he's more versatile, and he has worked on his game in different areas and is put on Front Street every time he's on the court. Somebody else who's been put on Front Street in a different way, and really his role changing, is Mr. Kyle Young. Kyle Young came to the season, had an injury, who has been a starter throughout a lot of the season, especially when he's healthy and able to play, not really having an injury, but still playing. But when he's healthy, 100% or as close to it, he is a starter for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Came into the season, did not start, had an injury. He's back healthy now. Zed Key has been the starter down low. playing phenomenal basketball, might I add. And Kyle Young has really stepped into this sixth-man role for Ohio State to the tune that he's so comfortable in his role that off the bench this past weekend, Kyle Young had 14 rebounds, a plus-minus of 9. 13 of those rebounds came on the defensive end. Oh, might I add, Ohio State won the rebounding battle 49-28 over Wisconsin. Let that sink in for you. A basketball team that has been battling with rebounding and has been one of their Achilles, one of their problems at times. 49-28, they won the rebounding battle. That goes to toughness, and that's a big reason why I think Kyle Young coming off the bench is something that we're going to see for a very long time. Think back to last season when C.J. Walker was the individual who got hurt in the middle of the season, didn't lose his starting spot. He had to get replaced. All of a sudden, he comes back healthy, and Chris Holtman says, no, CJ, you're better off the bench, that sixth-man role. That was very vital for last year's team. Kyle Young off the bench for this year's team, and it's very key. You saw it on the court on Saturday. It's very key for this team's success that Kyle Young, his leadership, he's comfortable in his role, and he sticks with it. What Chris Holtman wants, he goes forward with. Very, very big. But last but not least, Jamar Wheeler has been a phenomenal piece addition to this team. Throughout the first portion of the game in Ohio against Wisconsin, there were some things defensively that Ohio State, they weren't consistent. They weren't in sync on defense. Johnny Davis was, everybody talks about Brad Davison from Wisconsin. Johnny Davis is what you call a hooper. He had, I want to say 14 points in the first half, and it seemed like he was getting a lot of baskets. He was getting a lot of tough baskets, but man, that man was hooping on Ohio State. The second half, he had 20-plus points in the game, but those points did not come as consistently or easily as the points in the first half did. Jamar Wheeler, not only his presence, now he did not guard Davis throughout most of the game, if at all. I was looking at a lot of possessions. He didn't really check out much in that way. But one thing I think he is doing, Jamar Wheeler, is assisting and influencing other players on defense to say, look, I got my man. You know that I'm not switching on screens. I'm sticking with my guy. We're going to roll with this thing. And the next thing you know, I have seen Justin Orange's defense go up. I have seen other players that are younger, Branham and Michi Johnson, work harder on the defensive end than I think they would as freshmen because of a guy who is as seasoned as Jamar Wheeler and who is someone that they can trust to look upon and lean on in moments where they need some leadership. Ohio State rolls 73-55 over the Wisconsin Badgers. They have a game this upcoming week against the Kentucky Wildcats in Vegas. Oh, baby, you don't want to miss it. I'll be locked in. I hope you are too. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thanks again, everyone, for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen of every single day. And make sure to check out the Ultimate College Football Preview 2021. Local experts, betting advice, and draft analysis. The most comprehensive college football playoff preview begins this Friday. The Heisman ceremony was Saturday night, and I know many people were out here watching the ceremony, waiting to see where C.J. Stroud was going to fall. They were waiting to see. Well, he's there. I'm sure he's top 3. It's C.J. Stroud. He had a phenomenal season. He missed the game and still put up some amazing numbers. He had a Heisman moment based off what the people that are doing this talking space will say. He's definitely going to be in the top 3. Might even be top 2. When you look at the balloting, and I have it right next to me, I'm going to dive into it and some other things that happened in the Heisman Trophy ceremony. After taking some closer consideration and thinking about how Stroud's season went, and how many of the voters view C.J. Stroud, I'm not really surprised that he was outside of the top 3. I am surprised the way that the voting went because my voting would have been a whole lot different than theirs. I don't get a vote, but I'm not surprised. Based off how many of the talking people and those that are writers will do things, I'm not really surprised that C.J. Stroud was not in the top 3 in this year's Heisman voting. Bryce Young won the Heisman. He had a Heisman moment in the SEC championship against Georgia, the best defense in the country. And when you have that moment, we talk about sometimes when losses happen. Talked about it after the Oregon loss earlier in the year. Talked about it after the Michigan loss at the end of the season. When losses happen, the timing of said loss matters big time to the pollsters. Also, the timing of your Heisman moment, quote unquote, happens. It matters. Remember after Kenneth Walker III had that 5-touchdown performance against Michigan? It was like, oh, that's his Heisman moment. The next thing you know, people said, oh, CJ Stroud, he had his Heisman moment. A few weeks after that. The next thing you know, it's Aiden Hutchinson had his Heisman moment against Ohio State. You see how things are going there later and later and later into the season? The next thing you know, it's Bryce Young had his Heisman moments literally the last week that there was a lot of football being played. There was the Army-Navy game on Saturday, but the last time there was a lot of football being played in that day, on that space of that Saturday, Bryce Young had, quote unquote, his Heisman moment. Remember, the timing of these things happen. We are human, and we live in a microwave society, or let's instantly get this thing done. And sometimes it's, what have you done for me lately? Or who did it most recently? And if you look at the voting, it kind of goes just like that. Bryce Young, number 1, Aiden Hutchinson, number 2, Kenny Pickett, number 3, CJ Stroud, number 4. And here's where it gets interesting, because number 5 was Will Anderson. I heard all season long, Will Anderson from Alabama should be in the Heisman Trophy voting, should be in New York. I mean, he's having that good of a season. Some might say his season may have been better. He may have been a better player this year than Bryce Young, but they ain't about to put a guy that's on defense over the quarterback of Alabama. Not really doing that. Number 6, Kenneth Walker III. He would have gotten my first place vote for his entire season. He was number 6. Number 7, Matt Corral from Ole Miss. I just think that Ole Miss, the 10-win team that they are, different helmet, might have a different outcome. And then also Desmond Ridder, number 8. Jordan Davis, defensive tackle from Georgia. And then also number 10, Breece Hall from Iowa State. Things to me got very interesting when I looked at the breakdown of where CJ Stroud fell when it came to where he ranked when it came to first place votes, where he ranked when it came to second and third place votes. So we're going to talk about something that happened in the ceremony very, very soon. So CJ Stroud, he was 6th place. So you're ranking how many first place votes he got. Bryce Young was number 1, Aiden Hutchinson number 2, Will Anderson number 3. I like that one a lot. Number 4, Kenny Pickett. 5, Kenneth Walker III, and then number 6, CJ Stroud. Stroud was 3rd. He got the 3rd most second and third place votes. Most second place votes were Aiden Hutchinson. Number 2 in that category, Kenny Pickett, and then CJ Stroud. Bryce Young was number 3 when it came to second place votes, and then for third place votes, it was Kenny Pickett, number 1, Aiden Hutchinson, number 2, CJ Stroud, number 3. Bryce Young got the 7th most third place votes in that time. I get everything going on here. I have to remember that a lot of times Aiden Hutchinson's, I remember the timing of his game. If that game against Ohio State, Michigan happened earlier in the year, just like Oklahoma and Texas did, that his performance in that game is viewed a whole lot differently than it is when it's done the last week of the regular season. Timing is everything with these teams. I don't think CJ Stroud had a bad season at all. I think that his season, even if he played in the Akron game, I think that there were other details in his season, take numbers away, that really are why he was not the most outstanding player in this season, offensively or defensively. I just think that. I do think next year you're going to see, we need to see growth, not only from him on the field and how he plays, but also as a leader and more of a dog mentality, because I think that's one thing that's lacking with CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud really had more of the alpha male or dog mentality, or now I'm not saying he's going to have to speak up and be more vocal. I'm not saying that at all, but a more of that, I am the leader, I am the alpha, that type of mentality from CJ Stroud. I do think he can be the Heisman. I'm not penciling in anything preseason. Some of them talking heads, some of them do that. Some of them said before the season, Spencer Rattler, he is a Heisman frontrunner. Y'all crazy, please. I have never been a believer in Spencer Rattler. I didn't think he would get benched 2 years in a row, but I never was one person that thought that Rattler was going to be the Heisman Trophy winner at the end of the season. But in the midst of all this going on, let me go through something very quickly. Total points. I won't go through the total breakdown. Total points that were given. Now, this kind of confused me when I realized, like, why did they even invite CJ Stroud to New York with the point system being like this? Total points. Bryce Young had 2,311 total points when it came to the Heisman voting. Aiden Hutchinson had 954. Kenny Pickett had 631 total points, and then CJ Stroud 399, Will Anderson 325. By looking at this, they didn't need to invite 4 people to New York. Now, granted, it's a great experience. It's great for him, great for everybody involved, but they did not need to invite CJ Stroud to New York at all. If you see the total point breakdown and after the ballots are coming in, you're saying, oh, we're going to invite 4. I get it. I'm not knocking the experience. I'm not saying it's bad for him at all. The experience-wise, if I'm somebody in a Heisman trust, I might actually think twice about inviting 4 people after seeing the point breakdown when it is like that. Desmond Howard, I don't normally do this at all, but Desmond Howard did something on the platform there during the Heisman Trophy ceremony when talking to Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson talked about what the goals were for the season, beating Ohio State and winning the Big Ten Conference Championship. Check. He did both of those. Desmond Howard went a little bit further. He talked about how Ohio State's offensive linemen really didn't protect CJ Stroud. I do think there's a time and a place for everything, and also I do think it's something with the time we live in right now. There were times when that type of trash talk on that type of setting might have been acceptable. Maybe. But when we are living in this time we're living in right now, and everybody is thinking about things differently, taking things in differently, might want to think twice about making a comment like that in that moment. Go to the social media, go to YouTube. I'm sure you can find a clip or a video of what Desmond Howard said. I'm here for all the trash talk, and I don't even think Ohio State really is all about the bullet. What Ohio State it needs to do, if you're using outside sources to fuel you for that game, you're already in a bad spot already. That right there, that comment from Mr. Desmond Howard, former Michigan Wolverine, Heisman Trophy winner, that should not be the fuel you need to beat Michigan next year. If that's it, you got to check yourself right now. What needs to happen is not use those outside sources to fuel you. Use that loss, that performance in that game to fuel you, because that's all you need. You should always know there's one game every year that matters. It's the game against a team up north, and never, ever forget it. I'm off my soapbox. Didn't know that rain was going to come. You could kind of see how much that loss really got under my skin. Coming up next, Tony Wiggins, the host of Locked on Jaguars, will join us to give us the truth about what's going on with Urban Meyer and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And joining us now here on Locked on Buckeyes, it is the host of Locked on Jaguars and a man that might not be in the best of moods after the Jaguars lose once again. It's Tony Wiggins. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Jay. How you, man?
Doing very, very well. Better than you. I'm pretty sure I'm doing better than you. We talked before we started recording. 22-0 loss of the Jaguars. Urban Meyer is why you are here. He has been under a lot of fire, a lot of heat, a lot of things that have been going on inside the organization, inside the building itself. A lot of the times they're being exposed. What are your thoughts about what's going on right now in Jacksonville?
He's trying to turn them into the Marvin Lewis Cincinnati Bengals, but he's not as good of a coach as Marvin Lewis. We used to always talk about how a lot of the national media would criticize Lewis, but ignore the fact that he had a very small scouting staff. Well, Urban wants his coaches to scout college players. I'll give you a perfect example. A couple of weeks ago, right in the middle of a losing streak, which is a bad losing streak, they're 2-11 now. He talked about how they needed receivers, and he knows the 3 top receivers in the draft because he recruited them all. He's talking about the 2 kids at Ohio State and Jameson Williams, who was at Ohio State. So the thing is NFL coaches don't talk in the middle of the season about college guys that are still playing. It's just that his mind can't get away from the fact that he's not in college anymore, and he's dealing with grown men with kids and mortgages, and he has to lead sort of a Greg Popovich way, sort of a John Harbaugh way, where you have to convince guys to run through a brick wall for you that have money in their pocket, that have mortgages, that are millionaires themselves. This isn't college where you recruit kids and they're on a one-year scholarship and, you don't get a chance to sign five-star running backs. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
You don't get a chance to sign guys and think that your strength and conditioning program is going to be any different from the NFL. And quite frankly, I heard something early in the year. This is where he pretty much told the scouts he doesn't respect them. Now, I can't confirm it, but I've had 3 people tell me that it sounds very similar to something that they heard, is that he doesn't respect the scouts and he wants all the coaches to make the picks. So when you look back at the draft, Chris Ash, who used to be at Rutgers, he recruited Andre Sisco. That's your 3rd round pick. Tyson Campbell was recruited by Ohio State and Urban Meyer. That's your 2nd round pick. Trevor is Trevor. That is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
ETN was his Percy Harvin, even though he already had James Robinson. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then Walker Little, who hadn't played in 2 years, was a former 5-star recruit that was recruited by Charlie Strong when he was at Texas. So all of this familiarity that he tried to bring guys in that knew people that he knew and all of that doesn't work in the NFL. You have to just do eval and get the best players. He tried to recruit in free agency. Doesn't work. He had Trevor Lawrence in a quarterback competition with Gardner Minshew after making Trevor the #1 pick. You can't do that. You know what? Competition goes out of the window when you're the GM, the CEO, and the head coach. When you pick Trevor, you pick Trevor. That's your guy. You can't sit back and now say we're going to have a competition. It makes no sense. He's pretty much out of his league in the NFL, and he's learning a lesson that these guys can coach up here when he doesn't have more talent than everybody else, like he did at Florida and like he did at Ohio State. I'm very, very disappointed in his ability to lead.
Do you think that if the team was winning, that some of the things that are happening behind closed doors would get exposed?
Yep, because the NFL, that's what they do.
Okay.
He's been fined $100,000. The team was fined for some of the things that they were doing in practice. When you have that collective bargaining agreement and you have that union, okay, that's a plus to a coach if you really think about it. The plus is that you don't have to worry about 85 kids on a Friday night in a college town and worry about what's going to happen on a police blotter, right? Because the commissioner does that. And then the NFLPA does that. So you just have to sit back. You don't have to babysit people. But the thing is I think he loves to babysit people because I think he wants to micromanage everything. This is what happened this week. James Robinson, who's a really good player, was seemingly punished for fumbling. He put Carlos Hyde in the game. After the game, 2 straight weeks in a row, Urban Meyer said, I don't micromanage it, right? Report came out yesterday that he actually did on the headset tell Bernie Parmalee, the running backs coach, take him out. You can't lie to grown men. It doesn't work. And if we think back to Columbus, he said he didn't know that man's wife was getting beat. She said she told his wife.
Yeah.
This is a pattern.
Yeah.
There's a pattern here where he has a problem with guys who just keep their head down and want to play football. He seemingly doesn't have a problem with guys like Aaron Hernandez, the late Aaron, who beats the hell out of people, and Percy Harvin, who punches a coach in college because they can score touchdowns. He loves the bravado. He loves the swag, and you know that. The thing is, in the NFL, some people love professionals. We had a situation where they traded away Jalen Ramsey because of swag. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
Urban would have never done that. He wants that dude on his team. And the problem is he has to get away from these built-in things that he has. He falls in love with players, and people believe that he benched James Robinson because he isn't Travis Etienne.
Tony, this sounds like a very dysfunctional, disastrous situation that's going to be bound to end very ugly and probably end very soon. I don't know if Urban will make it. Now, we're recording this after the Jaguars play on Sunday. By the time this comes out, Urban could be fired. I have no idea. But are you expecting him to be fired before the season is over? And if not, when do you think he'll be up out of town?
Shaq Connor's very slow to fire his football coaches.
Okay.
But he owns a soccer team in Europe, and he fired 7 of those guys in like 8 years. But he knows the game of soccer more.
Yes.
He doesn't live in Jacksonville. He lives in Chicago. He's slow to fire people. Mm-hmm. For that reason, I don't know if he's going to move prior to the end of the year. I just don't see a path for Urban Meyer to ever get this team back. And I also can't see. Somebody asked me what's the percentage that I think he'll be coaching here next year. I said it's 90% that he won't. This is an absolute mess. There have been lies. You remember the lie? The people were trying to make him come to the dance floor in Ohio. And somebody said, hold my beer, and sent the video of him giving that girl a colonoscopy. And so you know damn well they wasn't trying to get him to come to the dance floor. He was doing. So Shad doesn't like liars. Because when you're the CEO of a team, I mean, we all tell a white lie, and I probably lied. I think I lied to my son this morning about something. But still, when you're the CEO of a team and you're the face of the franchise, down south, you can't do it.
That is true. Tony, that's been fun, man. I know you got to get back to the family. If you could let everybody know where they can catch you on Twitter and also where they can catch your podcast as well.
Locked On Jaguars every single day. Twitter, it's at Shop Talking Wig. Locked On NFL on Wednesdays. And I'm about to have me an old-fashioned and enjoy the rest of this day before I become a grief counselor tomorrow morning and have to talk to the Jaguars fan base, as I'm used to it, man. One thing I'm an expert at, I'm good at talking about losing, because that's all they've ever done around here in the last 10 or 11 years. So I've become an expert at losing, and I just try to laugh through the pain, bro.
That's all you can do. Guys, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. That's all for a Monday. We'll be back here the rest of the week talking football, talking basketball. The Buckeyes do have a big game against the Kentucky Wildcats on Saturday. We'll talk all about that. Get ready for that. But I'm happy that Tony was with us today, because this Urban Meyer thing has been very interesting, and I wanted to give a great perspective about what's going on right now down in Jacksonville. Guys, it's a Monday. Have a great start to the week.